Hey, I'm Blair Best. It's Wednesday here on The Story, and tonight we're taking a close look at the framework to fund transportation and avoid layoffs at ODOT, the governor making her pitch today after she called for a special session to get it done. Plus, more than $1 million of so-called wasteful spending on a free statewide preschool program. We'll tell you where it went. But first, outrage and mass confusion over potential rule changes coming to local family farms across the state. Many of you wrote to us asking for answers. It's our big story tonight.
Like, a lot of people are like, I want to save farmland. But the problem is we're saving the land. We're just not saving the farmers.
There's no shortage of farmland. They're protected in Oregon. What there is a growing shortage of farmers.
We're asking for your help to be a voice in support for our family farm and for family farms and farm stands across the state.
Some Oregon family farms raising the alarm after the state said they are planning to propose changes to some farm permitting policies. We're talking about farms that so many families flock to on weekends and throughout the holidays, like Topaz Farm on Sauvie Island and the Wooden Shoe Tulip Farm in Woodburn. You may have seen on social media this week cries for help from these farms and many others, saying the potential changes the state is talking about making would force them to close. Here's a video posted by Wooden Shoe Tulip Farm.
Some of these proposed rule changes would affect what we offer in our shops. It would affect the activities that we're able to offer on our farm.
This week, I caught up with the owners of Topaz Farm, Kat and Jim. Topaz is known for things like a market selling fresh local produce, a summer concert series, farm-to-table dinners, and a sunflower festival, among other things. They also grow their own vegetables, but selling those alone is not nearly enough, they say, to make ends meet, which is why they rely on those other attractions.
The realities of farming are horrible, meaning the economics are just terrible. It's extremely difficult at this scale to make any money. You have to have diversification. If you can't have a farm stand or farm-to-table dinners or harvest festivals in the fall, sunflower festivals, these are the kind of things that allow you to stay in business.
Those at Topaz tell me they've had talks with state leaders about what they need to make it easier for farms like theirs to survive.
Last fall, we started working with some other farmers, and we went down to Salem. We got meetings with the governor and with legislators to try to make it so that all farms, small, medium farms, can open their doors to farm-to-table dinners, to field trips, to have the opportunity to apply for a farm stand.
So we went, and everybody seemed really concerned, and they were going to help, and so we're going to streamline these rules. And so the rules that just came out last week were the streamlined versions, but the surprise to all the farmers was the streamlined versions are so much worse, to the point where we, yelled for help.
Well, out of the middle of nowhere, DLCD, Department of Land Conservation Development, created a RAC, a policy group, and they've come back with these rules that will essentially shut us down and shut agritourism farms down all around the state.
The State Department of Land Conservation and Development is trying to, quote, improve policies around farm stands. Here's Alexis Hammer, the department's legislative and policy manager.
We have the important and challenging task of establishing and updating the statewide planning framework, balancing goals like conserving agricultural land and natural resources while focusing development in the right locations. So there were conversations at the legislature in the 2025 session exploring the ways that we could build consensus towards an improved policy on farm stands and agritourism permitting to add clarity and simplify the permitting process.
The farm stands are structures designed and used for selling crops, products, or livestock grown on that farm. Under state law, farm stands may also hold some outdoor events and sell items that are not farm products, like souvenirs. Other larger activities like farm-to-table dinners, mazes, and music events may also require an agritourism permit, which is different than a standard farm stand permit. When we talk about agritourism, that's things that could have a broader impact on surrounding neighbors. But the state tells me they are looking to change rules around farm stands only. That's where a lot of the confusion has been the last couple days. The state didn't have any concrete details for me until today, which helps clear things up. Here are those proposed changes. First is to clarify what type of activities can operate without a farm stand permit, like U-Pick and free educational tours. Make it so any non-farm products sold at farm stands must relate to the products that are grown on the farm. Okay, like vases for cut flowers or carving kits for pumpkins, those would be allowed because they relate to what's grown on the farm. Another proposal is to clarify standards to prevent neighbor conflicts with surrounding homes and other farms, like issues with traffic, parking, and trespassing. Clarify what kind of events are allowed at farm stands, which ones would need a permit, which ones wouldn't. For example, flower arranging classes, hay rides, and cow trains are allowed and would not require a permit. But 18 or more farm-to-table dinners a year, weddings and concerts, while they would also be allowed, would require a permit and a thorough review of how they would impact nearby farms. The state was talking about making farmers reapply for farm stand permits every 7 years, but we're told today the state is no longer moving forward with that idea.
If you're only selling things on your land, you don't even need a permit at all. And if you are selling things that are not grown on your land but are grown in Oregon, a permit is required, but it is something that's allowed outright, and it's a straightforward, simple permit to achieve.
Again, that is the list of proposed changes to farm rules that the State Department sent me today, which, after listening to farmers' concerns, appear to be different than the proposals they've seen or been told. Local farmers are under the impression many of the attractions they depend on to stay afloat would be stripped away, which does not appear to be the case, according to the rules shared with us today. And there may be a reason for that discrepancy.
Well, I mean, there's some misinformation campaigns going around that are motivated by people that want to undermine the land use system, to be honest with you. And this is like a tool to get people all hyped up about hating the land use system. But that's a bigger story.
Okay, that's not certainly helping this situation at all. So I asked the state about adding new permit requirements, which is under consideration, and if that would just mean more paperwork and red tape for small family farms.
We've heard that from a lot of farmers, and we are listening. So I would first of all just mention that, we want to make rules that are workable for farmers. And we also want to make sure that, sometimes a permit will be established for someone to have a farm stand and sell, their own farm products or farm products from nearby. And that can grow into a major business that can have really big impacts on neighbors. And so we want to be able to balance those concerns and make sure that we're having good neighbors and, making sure that farmers can still make enough income to meet their needs.
The president of Friends of French Prairie, a nonprofit that advocates for sustainable farming and watches out for critical land use issues, is for changing farm stand rules, saying in a statement in part, there has unfortunately been a significant lack of oversight and enforcement. Farm stands that are selling artichokes, pineapples, mangoes, Italian pasta, pottery, etc., are clearly not sourcing those items from the farm, from neighboring farms, or the nearby region. Further, many have evolved essentially into mini theme parks or restaurants. Friends of French Prairie encourages the Rulemaking Advisory Committee to both address the need for enforcement as well as language that clarifies which items can and cannot be sold to promote local farm crops and the geographic range from which they can be sourced. This drama is just the beginning. Any changes to farm stand rules won't be finalized until next year. The state will release formal proposed rules through the Secretary of State later this year. The community will then have about 2 months to review them and give input. A Rulemaking Advisory Committee is meeting tomorrow in Salem to talk about all of this. The timing of these meetings, though, not great for impacted farmers.
And of course, they're doing all these hearings and meetings right in the middle of farming season. Any farmer like us is working, 12, 16 hours a day. There's no time to be going down to Salem and sitting through all-day meetings.
We ask you to write in support for farm stands across the state. Share your favorite memory. Share what you hope for farm stands for the future, and also help us advocate.
The system will only work if we listen to and incorporate the values of Oregonians to protect what we love about our beautiful state and support the farmers that feed us.
Okay, so everyone involved here says they want to hear from you, and you can send your thoughts to the state by emailing the address there at the bottom of your screen, farmforest.comment.d@dlcd.oregon.gov. We'll leave it up for you just a few more seconds. That email one more time, farmforest.comment@dlcd.oregon.gov. Now, many of you already have our email address memorized, and you know we want to hear from you as well. What are your thoughts on these early proposed rule changes? Email us, thestory@kgw.com, or call and leave us a voicemail, 503-226-5090. Well, turning now to the latest on the transportation funding dilemma in Oregon and the special session called by Governor Tina Kotek, bringing lawmakers back to Salem late next month. The goal, to fill ODOT's $354 million budget gap over the next 2 years, avoiding hundreds of layoffs, while also providing transportation dollars to counties and cities across the state that were counting on them. Today, the governor unveiled the framework for the bill that lawmakers are expected to hash out on August 29th, a sort of middle ground between the multi-billion-dollar bill that failed last month and the Band-Aid bill that died in the session's final hours.
So on the revenue side, to pay the bills, the proposal at this point is proposing a 6 cents gas tax, an increase in the gas tax by 6 cents, also including some increases in registration and title fees, another $42 on registration fees, supplemental fees for electric vehicles at $30, and title fee increases of $139.
The bill itself is still being drafted, but the governor said the gas tax hike would take effect on January 1st. It's not clear if that's the case for the other fee hikes. The governor says those revenue levers by themselves will fill ODOT's budget gap, maintain service levels, and avoid layoffs.
The 6 cents will also allow us to continue the split that goes to local government, so they can also meet their current transportation needs. So that would maintain the 50-30-20 split.
That's the general way revenue from things like the state gas tax is split up. 50% to ODOT, 30% to counties, 20% to cities. That formula was not included in that Band-Aid bill that failed at the end of the session, raising alarm bells here in Portland. At the time, Mayor Keith Wilson said PBOT would have to eliminate 60 positions if state money wasn't coming in. With this proposed framework, if it passes, it sounds like some of that would flow to the city. In a statement to us today, the mayor's office applauded the governor's decision to call a special session, but did not provide any additional details about potential layoffs within the bureau. But back to the new framework. The increased taxes for all Oregonians would not stop at the gas pump and the DMV.
This package would increase the payroll tax for transit from 0.1% to 0.2% to fund our struggling transit districts across the state, particularly our transit districts in rural parts of the state. They are facing a financial cliff. This isn't everything they need for future sustainability, but this will get them through to continue to maintain their services.
So yes, doubling the transit payroll tax that comes out of your paycheck. The original transportation bill would have tripled that tax to 0.3%. The governor says the framework also includes many of the ODOT accountability measures that we saw during the session, including regular audits of the agency and giving the governor the power to hire and fire the ODOT director. That power currently rests with the Oregon Transportation Commission. Now, for those of you who drive electric vehicles, listen up. The pay-per-mile plan that lawmakers call the road user charge is also in this framework and would begin in the summer of 2027.
There was bipartisan interest in continuing to make progress on the road user charge. And so what you will see in the bill is a commitment to implementing into the future the road user charge for existing electric vehicles, new electric vehicles, and hybrids and plug-ins. And that will go into effect in the next biennium. But there is bipartisan interest in doing that, and that is an important part for future funding of our transportation system. So we need to get started. So you see language on that in the bill.
And of course, we can't talk about transportation without talking about tolling. One of the major snags during the legislative session was Senate Democrat Mark Meek, who represents much of Clackamas County, openly opposing the Democratic-led plan. He was even removed from a committee to help the doomed bill overcome an early hurdle, but he's adamantly against tolling in his district, where ODOT's tolling plan was set to begin before being thrown out. He recently said one of his requests to the governor was to repeal tolling language. Well, the governor obliged and was asked if Senator Meek was the main reason she pulled that language.
There will be language in the bill to repeal ORS 383.150, which established mandatory tolling on projects in House Bill 2017 from the 2017 session. So we'll be taking those out. We are on a pause across the system on tolling outside of the interstate bridge, and I want to make that very clear. And this was an issue that had come up from other legislators, not just Senator Meek, about the lack of clarity at the end of session, which is why I had to write a letter. Now we have an opportunity with a new bill to really make that clear. And I know that is something that Senator Meek is supportive of, as other members, particularly in Clackamas County, are. So I think it's the right thing to do. It provides that clarity, and I do think that's important for Senator Meek.
Okay, the final price tag for this framework has not yet been released, but it's clear that the tax and fee hikes will cover ODOT's $354 million budget gap and give some money to cities, counties, and transit. So the total is at least higher than $354 million. But we could talk about this until we're blue in the face. The governor was asked perhaps the most important question this morning. Does she have the votes in the legislature to actually pass this?
I believe the proposal as I provided has the support to be successful on August 29th.
So we will see, but we did want to address a viewer question that came in last night following our interview with Republican Christine Drazen. Joyce wrote to us saying, what is the Democrats' answer to Drazen's suggestion of using the emergency fund? Okay, basically, Drazen argues that this special session is not needed and ODOT could fill its budget gap with funds from statewide emergency reserves without raising taxes. The governor was asked that very question this morning. Listen.
Well, I think there's two reasons for the approach that I'm supporting, is that this is traditionally how we have paid for transportation services like operations and maintenance, as well as transit districts and local government needs, through these type of user fees and a modest payroll tax. That's how we do things here in the state. It has worked. We want to stick to that traditional approach. With regard to the Republican proposals, particularly as voiced by Representative Drazen, by Leader Drazen, I think you have to ask her, well, what would she be cutting by taking that money? The general fund dollars that she is referring to are being reserved for things like wildfire suppression, caseloads in the Oregon Health Authority and Department of Human Services that we're anticipating. We are going to have general fund budget challenges, not only potentially because of a revenue forecast downturn, but because of the federal budget cuts. I think it would be imprudent for us to take those dollars for transportation when we have a predictable, traditional way to fund it.
Well, coming up next on the story, we hear from Secretary of State Tobias Reed, and his audit division found more than $1 million of wasteful spending within a statewide free preschool program. That's next when the story returns. The Oregon Secretary of State's office says they found more than $1 million in wasteful spending in the program that offers free preschool for kids statewide. Oregon Preschool Promise is a state-funded program that opens up free preschool slots for 3- and 4-year-olds from low-income families. But the Secretary of State's office says they got a tip that funds were being misappropriated. And when they looked into it, they say they found $1.4 million in wasteful spending by the department in charge. That includes $679,000 in grants to child care providers who were under-enrolled, meaning they didn't fill the spots they were funded for. $154,000 in grants to child care sites that hadn't even opened yet, and $586,000 in grants to providers that expanded even though they had under-enrolled the slots they had. For example, they say one provider had their slots increased from 9 kids to 32, even though they'd had less than half of them filled that year. The next year, that provider opened up 2 child care sites. One had just over half its slots filled. The other only had 2%. Here's Secretary of State Tobias Reed.
The program is set up to pay for slots, and we want those slots to be filled. We want kids to get the advantage of that support. And when we don't do that, we're leaving that opportunity behind. What was clear from our management letter is that had these dollars been better spent, we could have helped 100 more kids. And if we think about how that can compound year over year, that's why it's really important for the department to address these recommendations, to implement them. So we're putting these dollars to maximum use and helping every Oregon kid we can.
$1.4 million is just a small fraction of the program's $200 million budget over 2 years. But either way, the Secretary of State had a list of recommendations for the Oregon Department of Early Learning and Care, including enhancing monitoring at low enrollment sites. The DELC says all feasible recommendations are either complete or currently being implemented. But they told the Secretary of State staffing for this program has not kept pace with the rapid growth of services, resulting in limited ability to adequately monitor programming. They say the program doubled in size in 2019 after the state passed the Student Success Act, but DELC didn't get additional funding for fiscal analysis and grant monitors. Under the new budget the state just passed, they will have money for one person to do that. You may remember the recent tiff between Governor Kotek and Multnomah County Chair Jessica Vega-Peterson regarding the county's Preschool for All program, more specifically the tax on high earners to fund it. The governor says changes need to be made to try and keep high earners from fleeing the county while leaning on available statewide preschool programs, just like the one we just mentioned. Chair Vega-Peterson, for her part, gently told the governor to back off. So you can bet that if that issue bubbles back to the surface at some point, the county will use this so-called management letter as evidence that the statewide preschool programs are not without funding faults of their own. Keep it here. We're back right after this. Before we go tonight, we wanted to highlight a few of your memories of the late Ozzy Osbourne here in the Northwest. Last night, we showed you this footage from the KGW Vault ahead of a June 1982 show at what was then the Portland Memorial Coliseum. A viewer on YouTube wrote, "We got to the show a couple days earlier and camped out with a small crowd down in the tunnels near the Coliseum. There was a list of what order we all would be in when we entered based on when you arrived and signed in. We were right up front and not disappointed. It was a great show. R.I.P. Ozzy, you are loved." We also found this ticket stub from a show at Portland's Paramount Theater in July of 1981. The signature there belongs to guitarist Randy Rhoads. Another viewer commented on YouTube, "Saw that 81 show with Randy. Motorhead opened up. Fond memories." Well, that's the end of our show, folks. Thanks so much for watching. The good stuff is coming your way next. And don't forget, everyone has a story to tell. If you ever miss an episode of The Story at 6:30, we re-air it at 8:30 and 10:30 on our TV app, KGW Plus, which you can get right now for free on Roku, Apple TV, and Fire TV. In the meantime, have a great Wednesday night, and I'll see you right back here tomorrow night at 6:30.